Now, we have in our sights a tried and true negative thought. It drags down your mood and doesn't match the facts. It might sound strange, but this is actually good because now we can do something about it. The first step is to create a different point of view. We call that a constructive thought. A constructive thought is a realistic and helpful one that applies to the same people, place, or situation that sparks your negative thought, but in a way that doesn't drag you down. Usually, a constructive thought will look at a situation in a fresh, insightful way. It might seem strange or gimmicky to talk about creating a constructive thought, but if you bear in mind that thoughts are just interpretations of facts, it makes sense that we create thoughts all of the time. Since we create our negative thoughts, it is also possible to create more realistic thoughts. These are constructive thoughts. They get you closer to reality and move you forward. On the next page, you're going to create and write down a constructive thought for yourself. The two essentials for a constructive thought are that it's realistic and that it's helpful, meaning it can guide you towards improving yourself or your situation. Here are a few tips for creating a constructive thought. First, a constructive thought doesn't necessarily have to be overly positive. It just needs to be realistic. Put another way, the goal of a constructive thought isn't to look at the world through rose-colored glasses. It's just to look at the world clearly, with everything in sharp focus. Second, constructive thoughts often challenge your negative thought. If your negative thought made one of the thinking errors that we discussed, your constructive thought can say something that pushes back on that thinking error. Third, when you're writing your constructive thought, ask yourself how else you could view your situation. How would a friend see it? If it was your friend having the same negative thought, what would you tell him or her? Finally, you know yourself best, so trust your instincts when creating your constructive thought. Find one that really resonates with you, comes from the heart, and that you'll be able to remember easily. Use words that really sound like you. Let's see what Kristen came up with for her constructive thought.
After a couple weeks, I'd become pretty good at spotting my negative thought when it happened, instead of letting it sabotage my mood without even noticing. And I'd become more aware of thinking errors and how they caused, or at least propped up, my negative thought. That helped me know how to challenge it. But knowing all that stuff kind of just kept me from sliding backward, if you know what I mean. Like, I wanted to move forward. I reread the chapter in my book on negative thinking and realized I hadn't put enough emphasis on replacing my negative thought when I had it. I understood that my thought wasn't reasonable, but I wasn't taking the final step that was critical. In fact, the book advised me to write down what they called a constructive thought that had to do with my ability to balance my career and my family. A thought that I could pull out whenever I got the nagging feeling that I was destined for failure in one or the other. So I worked on that. I felt a little like I was telling myself a white lie or feeding myself propaganda, but the book mentioned that this was a pretty common feeling for people using this approach. So my plan was just accept the fact that it felt a little weird to use a constructive thought and at least give it a try. The book had me focus on establishing the truth, so I went on a fact-finding mission. I wanted to figure out the full story, not just the part that was expressed in my negative thought. I considered how well I had managed the demands of grad school and of the jobs before that and of college before that. And I realized that all along the way, I was able to maintain a strong relationship with my parents, make new friends, and even start a family of my own. I also asked Jim for his perspective on things. He's very level-headed. And he confirmed what I was starting to understand, that I am a darn good multitasker. So having another perspective was helpful. Next, I wrote out my negative thought. That I won't be able to succeed at work and be a good parent, and some of the reasons for that, mainly the thinking errors I was making. And then I wrote down why those reasons weren't totally realistic. Getting this down on paper helped me keep track of the issues without letting them get twisted. When it came time to nail down a constructive thought, I prepared by gathering the most important facts. So first, there is uncertainty about how my job after school is going to impact my family life. But second, I have always been able to strike a balance in the past. Sure, it might take time to prove myself and earn the trust of my bosses and coworkers, but both Jim and Alexa will understand if I have to really focus on work for 6 months or so. Third, there are many positions out there for physical therapists, and it seems likely I'll be able to find one that allows me to strike the right balance. I don't want to be a habitual job changer, but if I have to go on the job market again because I can't find the right balance, I'm willing to do that. At that point, it was a really easy hop for my constructive thought. I just had to boil it down. So here's what I came up with. It can be challenging to hit the right balance between work and family, but I have always been able to do so in the past. And if my job doesn't allow me to strike the right balance for me and my family, I will find a different job. It's short, declarative, simple. It works for me.
You can see that Kristen chose a new viewpoint that was fact-based, friendly, and practical. When you're ready, click Next to create your constructive thought.